as soon as they come across this fraud, and also make an attempt to get this fraudulent document from Mr. Mbofu, because it's supposed to be in our name. 2, why did Home Affairs officials not respond to court papers to an extent that Mr. Mbofu is proudly mentioning the non-responsiveness for the department and also including the non-responsiveness of the minister? 3, how did Northwest Development Corporation's Human Resource Unit employ Mr. Mbofu without performing due diligence, because it is the duty of each prospective employer to perform such before they employ anybody? Before they hire anybody, employers are known, and people who are specialists in HR, they know this fact, not only for government, but for all employers, public and private. Now, it is for these reasons that we have handed over this matter to the SIU, not only to probe Mr. Mbofu, but also officials in government, both in Home Affairs and the Northwest Development Corporation, who dealt with this matter of Mr. Mbofu. Now, I wish to remind the country how, after Bushiri, the so-called prophet, Pastor Bushiri, obtained this fraudulent permanent resident permit, which he used to defraud his own congregation of 102 million rand. 14 Home Affairs officials in permitting, where these visas are produced, wrote a petition to me as the minister, demanding that counter-corruption unit in the department must stop investigating what they call their errors. This alarming petition led to the establishment of now the well-known ministerial task team headed by former Director General in the Presidency, Dr. Cassius Lubisi. It was disturbing for me, ladies and gentlemen, for people working for the state to openly mention in a petition that we are committing errors and nobody should investigate them. That's how the Lubisi report was appointed. Now the question is Mr. Mbofu's case one of these so-called errors that were not supposed to have been investigated? Now, we believe the SIU will provide answers. For now, as Department of Home Affairs, we have opened a criminal case at the Pretoria Central Police Station, and we are also happy that the Northwest Development Corporation has also suspended Mr. Mbofu. We will see what the SIU bring. Now, I want to deal with the presidential proclamation handed over to SIU some days back. Because now Mr. Mbofu's issues lead me to this third issue, which I want to discuss with you today. As a result of the revelations of the Lubisi report, Home Affairs asked the President to issue a proclamation for the SIU to investigate visa issues in the Department of Home Affairs. We are happy that the President has issued such a proclamation, and the SIU is going to work hand in glove with the Dr. Lubisi team and the multidisciplinary task team, which was appointed as a result of the recommendation from the original Lubisi report. I also wish to remind the country what I once said in one press conference. Unfortunately, I can't remember the date, when some people accused us of doing nothing to secure our borders. This was before the advent of the Border Management Authority and its border guards. The accusations were made when social media videos showed poor people jumping the border some of them in order to come into South Africa, buy a loaf of bread or meal or paraffin. Now, at that time when this accusation was made that we are doing nothing, I pointed to the country that people want us to chase lizards while crocodiles abound. I described crocodiles as respectable people who entered the country legally, wearing suits or high heels and carrying briefcases full of cash to bribe officials to legalize their stay in the country. I said then that we are going to concentrate our energies and resources on the crocodiles. I never said we are going to leave the lizards alone. I said we are going to concentrate on the crocodiles because the country seems to believe that our problems lies on those border jumpers. I wish to enthusiastically tell you today that with the work of Lubisi team and multidisciplinary team and the SIU, the days of the crocodiles, like Mr. Mbofu, are numbered. From the Lubisi team, we have got reason to believe that these crocodiles are found all over the country in very high positions. And I want to report today that their days are numbered because we're not going to take this issue lying down, and the SIU is going to be very active. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I thought journalists are allowed to applaud after somebody finished presentation.
Thank you, Minister. We will now open the floor for questions from members of the media. Please identify yourself and also identify the media house from which you come. Yeah, we'll start if there's a question on the floor. Okay. Yes, sir?
Minister, good day to all the officials. My name is Aaron from ENCA. Firstly, in relation to the issue of inverted commas, swallows, of course, Minister, do you think the swallows?
Swallows?
Yeah. Do you think it would have been helpful if you had responded promptly and clarified the matter as soon as the memo leaked? Number two, have you established who leaked the memo and how it was leaked? Was there an internal investigation? Number three, what has been the response? Have you seen an increase in people extending their visas in the country ever since that incident took place? And then lastly, the Supreme Court of Appeal, of course, have granted you leave to appeal in regards to the Zimbabwean extension permit matter. Do you think the fight is over? Do you think you're winning, you're on track in relation to this issue? Thank you.
Just the third one.
The
one is really, the third one is...
Oh, the third one, what has been the response? Have you seen an increase in people extending their visas after this issue took place? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other question? Takalani, do you have questions from WhatsApp? We don't? Okay. Minister, we can respond to...
Is it the only question?
For now, yes, Minister.
Okay. Yeah, yes, thanks, Pule. You said shouldn't there have been a prompt response when the letter was leaked? The letter, as I said, was an internal communication, but it was by no means meant to be secret. So we can't say it has leaked, only that it has landed in the hands of people for which it was not meant, and of course they misunderstood it. We don't really regard that as a leak. That's the point we are making. And as I said, the memo was written in December, and the accusations were in January. And early in February, I tried, when I realized this thing is becoming serious, I tried to clarify it, as I said. During my debate, I had a slot during the debate of the State of the Nation address. Secondly, the question was asked again during the oral replies of the JCPS. If you understand parliamentary processes, when a question has been asked, there are follow-up questions, but they must be relevant to the original question. This was not relevant, and in terms of the law, I was not forced to answer it, but because of the nature of this, I did respond to it, emphasize again about the nature of this circular and exactly what must happen. So the second question is about who leaked it, Pule. We don't really regard this as a leak because we're not dealing with secrecy. The issue of whether there was a high response of people renewing their visas, they do that all the time. That's why I said perhaps the circular was not necessary. People renew their visas. It's in the Act. And maybe let me explain because it's not in the statement here. When you visit South Africa on a visitor's visa, you have got 90 days. That is what is called visa-free. You have got 90 days. And we know that there are countries that fall within that category. In Europe, 44 countries come to South Africa visa-free. In Asia, 20 countries come to South Africa visa-free. On the African continent, 36 countries also come to South Africa visa-free. That includes the whole of SADC, of course, with the exception of the DRC, which in many SADC countries have not been given visa-free. But that's a story for another day. In North America, 19 countries can also come to South Africa visa-free. That includes US, Canada, and many other big countries. In South America, 11 countries can come here visa-free. And in Oceania, it's 3 countries. Now, when you say you are coming here visa-free as a visitor and a tourist, it means you are given 90 days. In terms of the Act, you can extend that if you so wish by another 90 days to make it 180 days, after which there is no provision in the Act for a further extension. There's no provision. And such people will have to automatically leave the country. There was no need for a circular to remind them that they must leave on the 29th of February, which sort of raised temperatures when leaving after your days, allocated days are over. It's standard. Some of you have been to countries like US. They go to an extent because they've got systems we don't have, or phoning you in your hotel and tell you that, no, you were supposed to have left today or yesterday, please leave. You came here on a visit and all that. You know. So that's standard. And that's why we thought maybe a circular should not be issued. But as I explained, there was a thinking that we've got new people at the borders which might not know, and it might actually frustrate people. So people extend their visas all the time, even the so-called swallows. Now, when you said your days are finished in the country, when you come from a country that is visa-free, it doesn't mean you can't come to South Africa. It means you can come, but then you are required to apply for a visa, like people who are not visa-free, which means you start paying money and wasting time, etc. The issue of visa-free is that it saves you money, and you just wake up and say, I'm going to such and such a country because it's visa-free. You may remember that we used to be visa-free in the UK. A South African could just wake up anytime and rush to the UK. That's no longer the case. We have to apply for visas because the UK complained when our passport was being defrauded. And that's why we taking that matter of defrauding our passport very seriously. So I just want to explain various mechanisms about how the issue of visas go, how people renew and all that. So there was nothing new basically, except the fact that it was thought that there are new people who might not know these things. Thank you very much. Oh, yes. Pule, why am I not surprised? You guys in the media will love the ZEP, man. Hey. Even if it's not in my presentation. Yes, we've been given a chance to appeal to the Supreme Court of Appeal. We cherish that very much because we wanted the courts to clarify certain things, which, if not clarified, we believe will cause a lot of problems in the country and will cause a lot of unwanted precedents. So we are looking forward. And as you know, you are right when you say the problem is not over. In this matter, Pule, in this matter, we really want the Constitutional Court on all the issues to pronounce itself so that we know if we're indeed wrong and the other people were right. But before that, we'll remain in the dark and we'll navigate in the dark most of the time, and there will be trouble. So we really want these matters to be clarified in the courts once and for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister, for the comprehensive responses. Any further questions? Yes, ma'am.
Minister, thank you very much. This is Ola Sholwana from Newsroom Africa. I just have 2 questions for you. You spoke about crocodiles. Do you, by any chance, know how many are there and what is going to happen to Home Affairs officials who have been working together with these crocodiles? So essentially, is there maybe a specific jail time for them? And then the second question is, should Home Affairs officials, rather the ones that have been found to be working with these crocodiles that you spoke about, should they be seen as people who have aided these crocodiles? Or rather, okay, let me just rephrase my question. Should Home Affairs officials found to have aided these crocodiles be seen to have done treason? That's the second question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Minister, there's a follow-up. William Treaty joins again from ENCA. Just on the ZEP matter, what are some of the things that you want the courts to clarify? What are the crux of your contestation in your application as well? And then number 2, just for clarity for those who may not know, what's currently happening with the ZEP applications and processing thereof? Thank you.
Thank you. Tagalan, still nothing on the WhatsApp?
Ula, you're not reading my press conference with ZEP because I called you here for specific things. Yeah. Anyway, there is a question about this issue of crocodiles. How many? In specific time period for which Home Affairs officials must be jailed, etc. Look, let me start from the beginning, how this process came about and unveiled. I said this process started when we learned that Bushiri, remember Bushiri was a permanent resident from a document he obtained from Home Affairs, but he defrauded a congregation of 102 million, was arrested by the Hawks. It is the Hawks, I must confess, who doubted this document and sent it to Home Affairs and say, we've arrested this man for fraud, but he has got a document here issued by you. Can you check it? And when Home Affairs checked it, found that indeed it was fraudulent. We immediately suspended the individuals who were involved in that, and many of them went through DC, and they were dismissed. But we did not stop there. We referred the matter to the Hawks to see if there was a criminal case, which, ma'am, you call treason. Yes, I must tell you, in my mind, this is high treason. I don't know in the law. In my mind, selling your country like this is high treason in my mind. But as I'm saying, we are a country governed on the basis of law. I don't know what it says in law. Now, we then learned that there's another pastor, the gentleman who is being charged for rape in Kabeja by the name of Omotoso. There was also a rumor that his documents were also somehow irregular or fraudulent. And my question is, which other priest, because there are many priests here who come from other countries, feel steadier and all that, and people have been asking us about them. So I said, which other one? While we were pondering this question, not able to answer it, a petition arrived on my table, signed by 14 people who are working permitting. Permitting is where it falls under Mr. Mudiri Matthews there as the acting DDG. That's where permits are issued, permanent residents, visitors and permits. That's where they are issued really. So this erstwhile people are doing very important job. They now write the petition. They say the counter-corruption unit in the department must stop investigating their errors. What does that tell you? If you believe there are errors, it means people are coming into South Africa and out and establishing businesses, even establishing home on the basis of errors. That's what it meant to me. Secondly, if there are not errors, then it means it's massive corruption. How many people does it involve, this massive corruption? I did not have an answer to that question. That's when then I said, no, this matter looks very serious. Let me put a special task team. And then I thought about a very experienced public servant in the name of Dr. Cassius Lubisi. He was joined by people who used to work for the Scorpions. You remember the entity called Scorpions, which was disbanded some years back. There are people who used to work there. They came in to join Lubisi. But he was also joined by people who were investigators for the Zondo Commission, the State Capture Commission, because the State Capture has just finished its work and they were free. So they joined Dr. Lubisi. And we gave them this job. Go back to 2004. Every document that was issued, visa, permanent residence, critical skills, business, corporate, whatever, please go to review them and see if they were issued in a correct manner. Because people are issuing them said errors. It's not us, it's them who said we committed errors. Which one was issued in error? Are these issues errors? How many were issued in this manner? How many errors were committed? We needed answers to those questions. And Lubisi report started the work. You are aware that they went to Parliament to give their findings. And you are aware that their findings shows that the scope of work is huge. Then they gave recommendations. Amongst them, they said, look, Minister, you need a multidisciplinary team, a team that consists of forensic investigators. We were not doing forensics here. We were just reviewing the visas that were issued. It was not forensics. You will need forensics on each one of them we've identified. 2, you need data analysts to analyze this data that came out of our report. You need data capturers. 3, you also need very experienced senior counsel, because there's a possibility that some people who are big have already established themselves, they've already established businesses on the basis of this fraudulent document as Bushiri has done. And you might want to retrieve them. And of course, these are very highly moneyed people. They are going to rush to the courts of the country. You are aware that Bushiri has actually done that. Immediately we told him his document is fraudulent. We wrote him an alteram partem letter. He rushed to court immediately and said, look, I've been arrested by the Hawks. I'm due to answer questions in court, but the Department of Home Affairs has written me a letter to force me to reveal some of my answers, whereas it's my defense. And unfortunately, the judge, or was it the magistrate, agreed with him. And even now, our document is still there with him. Now, to avoid that, we need very highly experienced people. That's why we also thought about the SIU, because you are aware that the SIU has got a special tribunal that can allow them to do certain things without having to rush to a court of law. So at the moment, ma'am, we don't know how many of these crocodiles are, but we know they are there all over the country. in high places. Now the issue of what are the number of years on which Home Affairs officials are sentenced, I'm sure you know that's a matter for the courts. Yes, it's the court which decide, because the people who have suspended and fired are 5 now. They might actually be given different years depending on what the judge or the magistrate decide. So we won't be able to know the number of years, etc. Pule, what is the crux about the ZEP, which need to be clarified? I thought I've clarified this matter many times. I said the ZEP was issued in 2009 when the world went into recession and when the economy of Zimbabwe started collapsing. Many people rushed here in large numbers. All of them were coming under the name of refugee or asylum seekers. And you know the word refugee and asylum seeker is prescribed by the international conventions. So basically, these were people who were rushing to South Africa for economic reasons, but not as refugees. But they were coming under the auspice of refugees. The refugee reception centers were not designed in 1998 when the act was passed, were not designed to deal with an avalanche of people all at the same time, mostly coming from the same country. So they were overrun, and some of the people started defrauding documents, etc. So a plan was hatched by Home Affairs. Let's give them a special permit to be in South Africa for a particular period while we are sorting out these problems. And that's how the ZEP was issued. And there were also conditions. One, you had to show that you are at least employed, even if you came. It was not just issued to anybody because they're Zimbabwean. It was issued to the special group who ran into South Africa and say we are refugees when they were not. And I want to explain this because many people believe anybody from Zimbabwe is on the ZEP. There are many people from Zimbabwe in this country who are on a study permit, who are on a business visa, who are on a general work visa, who are on a critical skills visa, etc. And they are sojourning in South Africa, or who are permanent residents for that matter. So, but this particular group, it was known that they won't qualify for any of those at that time when they arrived, and that's why they were given a special permit. It was supposed to expire, as you know, in 2014. Come 2014, it was just extended to 2017. Come 2017, it was extended to 2022. And my question was, up to when? When is this going to stop? And in the meantime, Pule, complications were arising. Like some of the conditions given was that once you receive the special permit, you can't apply for the other 17 visas that are on offer in South Africa. You can't apply for critical skills. You can't apply for a corporate visa. You can't apply for anything. You are stuck on this one. Now the question is that practical? Number one, there are people who are on the ZEP who eventually got married because they are interacting with South Africans. And you know, in terms of the law, once you marry a South African, you then automatically qualify to apply for permanent residency, which will eventually lead to citizenship. So if you come and they inform you that, oh no, but you signed for this ZEP that you are not gonna get any other permit, in a way you are telling you that you are not gonna get married. And we can't control who people fall in love with. So that in itself is wrong and it's problematic. Secondly, there are people who were students, because it was also one of the conditions. Are you employed? Are you a student? Are you running business? There were 3. There were those who are students. They did degrees here in South Africa and passed, some of them in critical skill areas, and they could apply for a critical skills list. Critical skills visa, which they qualify for. And imagine being told that, no, but your condition of ZEP is that you can't apply for this. They will obviously rush to court. So there were many complications, and we said no. this thing cannot continue. After all, it was meant to be for 5 years only, and it kept on being extended, which means perhaps it was not well thought of that things like this will happen. And that's why we said we are giving them a year to apply for the other mainstream visas, the 17, which in terms of the original document they were barred from applying for. We said now apply for them. And now, Pile, there is something that in the media, for some reason, people refuse to accept even when we explain. They said, but these people, you know very well, Minister, they won't qualify because many of them are domestic workers. Only people with critical skill will qualify. Some are working in the gardens, in agriculture, in the restaurants. What they are failing to understand is that we knew that, and we catered for it. In the Immigration Act, when you apply for a general work visa, the law says your employer, who is supposed to employ you, is supposed to go to the Department of Labor and Employment and prove that they have searched the length and breadth of South Africa, and they could not find any South Africans who can perform that job. So they are asking the Department of Labor to give them a certificate to hire somebody from outside the country. That's what the Act says. And we know that that did not happen. Many employers ignored it. And maybe the Department of Employment and Labor also ignored such transgressions. Now, we said in the case of these people who were on the ZEP, because they've already been on this work, they must apply to the minister to set aside, to give them an exemption actually, to exempt them from having to go to the Department of Labor. All they need to do is that I was given the ZEP because I was employed, and I'm still employed. Then we say, then apply for, if you are employed in general work, apply for it. If critical, if what, apply for that. If it's general work, we are exempting you from going to the Department of Labor. So you don't have to prove anything about a South African who's more suitable than you. And we got those applications. DG, how many of them up to now?
80,000.
Yes. 80,000 of such people have already applied for this exemption. And I've signed many of them to say you are exempted because that was part of the plan. So the story that, no, we're going to cause a crisis, we know very well that people won't qualify and all that, doesn't take these issues into consideration, Pule. So these are some of the things we want clarified. The other thing, if you remember in court, they talked about PAJA, promotion of administrative justice, that before you take an administrative action on anybody, you need to consult them. I wanted clarity on this consultation, because in South Africa, when we make laws, we consult the public, you are aware. It's called public participation. Now, this particular one, who do I consult? South Africans or Zimbabweans of a particular creed? In what way? We were told by lawyers, these are lawyers who are trained, that no, even after taking this decision, you can still do PAJA. In what way? Each one of the people who were affected, 178,000, we wrote them a letter to explain to them what we are doing. We even left a phone number there and an email to say, if you have got questions or queries about this, please write to us. We even issued a government gazette. We gazetted that statement so that anybody can see it, which with the details of where they need to lodge a complaint if they have to. We even wrote via DECO to the ambassador of Zimbabwe and say, you are nationals who are here. If they come to you, ask questions when they are confused, this is exactly what we're saying, this is what you were doing, please explain to them. So three things: writing a letter, gazetting to an individual on the last address given. And I'm emphasizing that because some of them gave these addresses in 2019. They are no longer there in any of those addresses. Some gave somebody else's address. Some just gave an address that doesn't exist. We know that happens a lot in Home Affairs. So we said, because we don't know where to get them, let those who gave us addresses, let's write to them. We even sent SMSs on the last available cell phone number in our systems. We then wrote to the ambassador of Zimbabwe. We then gazetted it. Now we are saying that to us was enough consultation. Can the court clarify to us what actually they mean in terms of PAJA, of not consulting somebody? Now, I'm sure you are also aware that there's another case, Pule. The courts have to pronounce on it. They've not yet done so. Where some of them went to court and say, oh, we no longer even want to challenge this ZEP only. We want permanent residents. We've been in South Africa long enough to deserve permanent residence and eventually become citizens. We also don't believe that should be the case, because it will open precedents which we won't be able to control. So there are lots of things really that needs to be clarified. There was also an issue that now we have got kids here who are attending school, we are going to uproot them and send them back. It's going to cause chaos. And we responded, Pule. In South Africa, there's the Children's Act. It is very clear that in government, whatever decision you make, it must be made in the best interest of the child. So as Home Affairs, we are also bound by the Children's Act. So when we finally make a decision on somebody applying, we look at the issue of kids. How many kids will be affected? Can we go on with this decision, or on the basis of the kids affected, maybe let's defer it and all that? We were going to do that, but we did not want to do it as a blanket thing, which is maybe what some of the NGOs were forcing us. We wanted to do it to a particular specific individuals whom are affected by this issue. So we have got a lot of things that really needs to be clarified. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. I believe the issues were ventilated. Tagalani, still we don't have anything on WhatsApp, no? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, you want to have a last bite, ma'am?
Yes, just last.
Go on, ask. I'm not in a hurry.
All right, Minister, I just want to understand, how are you planning, how are you planning to address the never-ending backlog in processing of visa applications, especially short-term visas? Maybe that could help a lot in terms of what we were essentially speaking about today.
Look, this is one of the problems that Home Affairs is faced with, that visas are regarded as homogeneous. And when they say backlog on visas, it's generalized, it's homogeneous, which is wrong. There are 17 types of visas, 17. And not all of them have got backlogs. Some are very easy to deal with. There are specific visas on which there's a backlog, but when people talk about backlog on visas, that will collapse the economy, that will deprive the country of skills and all that, they just throw them into one bag. And I want to emphasize there are 17 types of visas. We have got a corporate visa, a business visa, a scarce skill visa, a general work visa, a study visa, a spousal visa, permanent resident visa, etc., etc. So it will be good to understand where there is a backlog. Let me explain the most commonest ones which affect lots of people. The general work visa, for instance. I've just explained to you that we have got to go to a Department of Labor, prove to them, obtain a certificate, and come to Home Affairs. That might take time, because now you are working between two departments. It might take time. Then there is a critical skills visa, which people confuse with general work visa. That one, the Minister of Home Affairs is supposed to, every 4 years, determine what are the critical skills in the country and gazette those skills. If anybody comes with a letter of employment, of being offered a job, and when you check on the critical skill list, their qualifications appear there, you immediately give them a critical skills visa. So it can't be a waste of time. I mean, it can't take time. The backlog that people are talking about is mostly what we call dependency visas. It's mostly spousal visas. People who, and relative visas, people who say, I've got a spouse in South Africa, I want to join that spouse. And the reason that we've got a big backlog, that number is growing in leaps and bounds, especially, what do you call this? No, these ones where you just sign a contract with somebody. Yes, notarial. Ma'am, there's something called a notarial contract, where you just pick somebody and go to a lawyer who is regarded as a notary general and say, I'm staying with this person. Can you write a contract that we are staying together? They don't have to get married. They just stay together, write that contract, and they bring it to Home Affairs and say, on the basis of this, I want the spousal visa to stay in South Africa. Many of them need to investigation, and our fear is some have been investigated and found that there's no such a relationship. Mr. Mudiri knows that very well, and it's hard work, where immigration officials visit the address where it's given, that I'm staying with this person at this address. They find only one person. They go again in the afternoon, still find one person. Go again in the evening, maybe somebody's working, still find one person. And they repeat that for 6 months. They never found this second person here. And yet there's a notarial contract. So for us to issue a visa on that basis is actually scary. So it takes our time to investigate those. But be that as it may, we have put together a program. Number one, if you apply for a visa, maybe as an executive, at the same time, you'll realize that we issued the directive later to clarify that. At the same time, write the number of children or dependents that are under you so that we know them immediately up front. You shouldn't come here and give a visa and somebody come and apply later and say, no, I'm following that person who have given a visa. It must be issued all at the same time so there won't be any backlogs. Secondly, we have established, and I think we issued a media statement 2 weeks ago, something called a trusted employer scheme, because some of the delays on these visas is that they need lots of documents for your information, lots and lots of documents. We need to ascertain your qualifications. We need a police record. There are those who needed x-rays, etc. The voluntary report, which was commissioned by the president, recommended that we leave some of those things. We left them, like x-rays or like obtaining a police clearance for the past 5 years in all the countries that we have stayed in. We have left that one and confined it to only 12 months. Now, the trusted employer scheme works like this. There are employers, not everybody, who will be in that scheme. And once you are in that scheme, we are saying we give the job of going to get all these requirements and documents. We give it to you as an employer. Go and get them. When you bring them here, we won't caution you. We'll issue the visa. But please know that we're going to do random checks. And if one day we just discover that during our random check that you lied on any one document, we take away this is based on trust. We take away your status because you are no longer a trustworthy employer. You just have to go onto the queue and waste time like you used to do in the past. Now there were 106 companies. 106, yeah? Well, 109. There were 109 companies that applied for this. We have given 68. And I'm sure your next question is, what are the criteria? We chose 5 criteria to give to these companies. 1, any company that invests more than 100 million or more. If you invest less than that, we can't put you on the trusted employer scheme. It's not worth it. You've got to come with a worthwhile investment. So it's 100 million. 2, that if you have to bring people from outside the country, in other words, putting up your staff or human resources, 60% must be South Africans. Because we want South Africans to get jobs. The other 40% you can bring from outside. Then we put you on the trusted employer scheme if you do that. 3, we want you to demonstrate to us that there will be technology transfer. That whatever knowledge you have in that investment, you extend that knowledge, you transmit it rather to South Africans so that they can have this knowledge and we don't have to rely from other countries. 4, we look at your BEE status in the country. And number 5, perhaps I should even have put it on the top. We don't give trusted employer scheme to any. We are looking at industries that will help the country. For instance, at the moment, the country is suffering from the energy problem. So we will say all the investors here, apart from a requirement that they must invest 100 million, will immediately put them on the trusted employer scheme. If what they are doing is in energy and also infrastructure, not that the others are excluded, but those who are in energy and infrastructure are given a preference and priority over the others. So that's what we are doing, and we believe if things happen this way, there won't be a backlog. If there's a backlog, it will be the employer who causes that backlog. So there is a plan. We've also dedicated a certain number of people to work on only this. Now the part, which I must confess is going to be a problem, is the fraud of signing a document that you are staying with somebody when you are not staying with them. It's the fraud of bringing a fraudulent marriage. You are aware that we are dealing with lots of fraudulent marriages in Home Affairs. So all those are the ones that are setting us back and developing a lot of backlogs. If you look at this backlog, it grows every week because people are learning every week that, oh, I went to get it, I signed the contract, go to a lawyer. And so every week you are finding people who are coming with notarial contracts, etc. That is the part really that is going to cause us problems in the backlogs. But otherwise, the others, which are to deal with the economy, we don't think there should be a backlog in those because we believe we can resolve them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. I believe this brings us to the end of this media briefing. The Minister did indicate that he still has time, so if there are requests for one-on-one engagements, he is available. Thank you. We are adjourned.